This morning I'm talking about the personality. Do you have an integrated personality? It's not unusual to hear someone say, wow, that person has a really powerful personality. Or they'll say, you know, I am one of those that has a very powerful personality. However, in the esoteric world, the term personality means something very different. You know, in the outer world, when someone says, I have a very powerful personality, that usually means that, they can speak very loudly, that they are in a position of authority. I don't know. It just means to them all kinds of things. And sometimes that kind of personality can be very intimidating. But in the ageless wisdom, there are so many words that have different meanings than the dictionary meaning. Sometimes we need to know the vocabulary so that we can understand what we are talking about, what we are listening to, and what we are reading. And one of those words is personality. So those in the esoteric community, or those who are just stepping into the esoteric community and studying the books by Alice Bailey, Lucille Cedarkrantz, Torquem Saradarian, Agni Yoga. This is what I'm referencing as stepping into the esoteric community. We have a different vocabulary. So what is the vocabulary of personality? The personality is composed of 3 or 4 bodies. The physical etheric body is one. Then we have the emotional body. Then we have the mental body. So sometimes we reference physical etheric as one body. Sometimes they're 2 separate bodies. It depends on the approach that we're taking and the theme that we're talking about. But when these 4 bodies are working together as a whole, as one unit, that's when we say that individual has a personality. So again, that's the esoteric language of personality, when those 4 bodies are all working together as one unit. But, and this is an important but this is not the case for many human beings. They have an etheric body, they have a physical body, and so forth, but these 4 bodies, they're not coordinated. In other words, they're not integrated. So to have an integrated personality means you have a coordinated personality, which means all 4 of these bodies are working together as one unit. Something that may come as a surprise, even to the more knowledgeable esoteric student, is that not all bodies are at the same age or stage of evolution. Stage age means the same thing. They're not all at the same stage or the same age of evolution. But this makes sense when you take a closer look. So for example, as I said, we have 4 bodies. But let's say we have, with these 4 bodies, we have 4 people running. This is just a metaphor. These 4 bodies, these 4 people are running. And one is at the 4-mile mark, and the other is at the 1-mile mark. This kind of situation is not going to build your personality. A personality is built when all four bodies are approximately at the same stage of evolution and functioning in the same rhythm. See, now we're getting a little more specific about what a personality is. All four bodies must be approximately the same stage of evolution and have the same rhythm. Some people physically are 80 years old, but their mental body is 30 years old. A physical body of 80 and a mental body of 30. And their emotional body may be the age of a teenager. Their etheric body can be either very feeble or very strong. These kind of situations cannot build a personality. Also, such a situation creates lots of conflict within you because your physical body says, oh my God, I am so tired. And the emotional body says, you're not tired, get out there and run. And the mental body says, no, it's too late. The etheric body does not have any energy to pump into your body. This means you're not a personality yet. You're growing toward it. But at this point, these four bodies are not coordinated. They're not at the same stage of evolution, and they're not rhythmically working together. When your four bodies are not integrated, you create lots of family problems, group problems, and social problems. If your bodies are not integrated, it means that they are not coordinated and not geared to each other. You know, it's so interesting, but it gives us insight into each person's life and their nature, and teaches us, what does it mean? It teaches us to understand if another person's nature, those four bodies are not coordinated. If we have an 80-year-old physical body and a 30-year-old mental body and a teenager-aged emotional body, then you need to have patience and understanding with that individual. So, for example, let's say that you're engaged in a conversation with somebody and you're really trying to get, a reaction out of them. If their mental body is the conductor of those four bodies, they're not going to have emotion. When you talk to them, it's like nothing gets registered unless there's a reaction. But even oftentimes there's no emotional reaction, just they sit there like a mummy, and hear what you have to say. But it's not registering. That conversation with you is not registering in all four bodies. Does somebody want to let them in, please? Thank you. So this is so interesting to me. It's very interesting because we recognize our job. If you have a true personality, if you are integrated, then you have a responsibility to speak to the level of that person. Okay? And then to help them unfold and develop and understand what it is you're saying. And at least not expect something from them that they cannot give back to you. So let's say if you have four separate, non-coordinated bodies, then you have four different bosses. controlling you. One boss, your mental body, promises, okay, tomorrow I'm going to help you. 10 minutes later, the emotional body says, no, I'm not going to help you. And the physical body says, look, I'm tired, I'm going to lie down, I don't have any energy. This happens. Maybe it happens to you, but don't admit it. We have our pride. If you really think about it, this kind of situation causes personal problems. It causes problems between these four bodies. It causes problems if you, for example, if you're married to a person who's very physical and you're very mental, you're either going to have to come together through the emotional body or you're going to be miles apart. In a marriage, when you get, you take that vow and pledge yourself to one another, and you're at the same stage of evolution, your physical body, emotional body, mental body are coordinated with one another. This is going to be a great marriage, but what happens is if one person begins to advance spiritually and the other person is not, if they're going at a snail's pace and you're going at the jackrabbit pace, year after year, that great divide is going to increase. So it's no different with our own bodies. Because I didn't want to bring the whiteboard up this morning, just because it takes time and space. Think of this. This is an age-old diagram where you can create 3 spheres: mental, emotional, physical. And if these 3 spheres are the same size, you've got the beginning of a coordinated body. What makes them integrated is if these 3 spheres overlap. When they overlap, there is communication from one to the other to the other. What the emotional body feels, the mental body understands, and the physical body assimilates. Now, there are situations where the mental body, that sphere, is huge, and the emotional body is almost negligible, and the physical body might even be larger than the mental body. This is generally what we see in humanity. Their interest is, if their interest is, if their interest is almost totally physical, they're going to be at the gym every day. They're going to be really, really focused on their checking account, getting their house clean, running every day. See, all these physical activities. Now, if it's mental, if they're very mentally oriented, you might find that person with several university degrees. You might find them, in college for 15 or 20 years. Or you go into their house and you find 3,000 books on their shelves. Or what if they're emotionally polarized? They cry at the drop of a hat. They go to a movie and they're sobbing and sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. But nothing's registering in the mental body. Nothing's registering in the physical body because there's no interaction. Those 3 spheres, they're not overlapping yet. So that means at that point in the evolution of the soul is that there's no coordination, no harmony, no rhythm between the three bodies. Okay. So this creates difficult relationships. Those people who promise and do not honor their promises are not yet personalities, not yet integrated personalities, because the person who is promising is not the boss. Who is promising? It may be the physical body, it may be the emotional body, it may be the mental or etheric body. All these four bodies are elementals in their position and are continuously changing. So this is the science of our personality. The physical body has an elemental. Each body has an elemental. If our elementals are of a low quality, we cannot build the personality, and certain of our expressions become very unbalanced and uncoordinated. If you are speaking with somebody, wherever you are concentrated at that moment, you are talking in the name of that body. So if on the plus side, trying to build right relations with a person whose personality life is still not integrated, and they're emotionally polarized, you've got to talk to them, to that emotional elemental. As an example. Emotionally, you are expressing yourself, but mentally, you do not express yourself because your mental body does not agree with your emotional body, what your emotional body wants. It's actually kind of dizzying, right? If you really, stop to think about it. And this is why it causes this uncoordinated, not yet integrated body personality, causes problems in our relationships and in our health. It creates a very unbalanced situation. So this is why the Ageless Wisdom always emphasizes that we must develop these bodies harmoniously. Our physical, etheric, emotional, and mental bodies must develop by feeding them with proper nourishment. It takes ages until we coordinate these four wills together, until we synchronize them. They must turn together nicely, harmonize with each other, becoming like this beautiful flower. Eventually, when they are harmonized, we say that, what? You have a personality, an integrated personality. Integration of the personality is when our physical body, etheric body, emotional body, and mental body are forming one unit. Now, when you form one unit, there are still some problems there. For example, if someone hits you physically, you're going to feel the pain emotionally and mentally because you are one unit. That is why some people who are advancing have a little more pain and suffering than others. If you're an average person, which means you're not yet an integrated personality, which means you are not yet working on yourself, you also have problems. For example, let's say your emotional body is developed, but your other bodies are not. In such a situation, problems and shocks will come to your emotional body, because that is your sensitive point. Your emotional body is the sensitive point. I remember many years ago, this young lady came into a Sunday service, and she had just lost her puppy dog. She could not control her emotions. She cried during the whole service. And this went on for years, not just for a few weeks, but for years, because the emotional body was her sensitive point. See, when you have an integrated personality, and where I'm not going to talk about it this morning, but I just want to mention it. When your integrated personality is aligned to the light of your higher mind, to the light of the higher self, you have vision, you have understanding, you have a sense of future, you have a sense of infinity. And when, in the case of this young woman, when she lost her puppy dog, see, she'll grieve for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a little bit longer than that, but she'll know and have an understanding that she's still in contact with that puppy, the energy of that puppy. And she may meet that puppy on the inner planes. Or something a little bit more practical is she'll buy another puppy. Not to be crass about it, you know. And then she'll forget about the earlier puppy and fall in love with this puppy and live happily ever after. I'm definitely not speaking scientifically here, you know, but it's just life. When problems hit your emotional body, that body takes those problems and shocks and keeps them to themselves. The emotional body keeps that shock to itself. It doesn't share it with the mental body. It doesn't share it with the physical body. There is no coordination between the bodies. But what is there? And it's called cleavage. There are cleavages between the physical body, the emotional body, and the mental body. So we have 4 units, and these 4 units are not coordinated and synchronized with each other. If we are not working on ourselves, any shock in any of these bodies cannot be transferred to the other bodies simultaneously. So are you getting that? Do you see it? Okay, it's very simple to understand, but it takes many, many, many incarnations to build an integrated body. It requires us working on ourselves. If a personality has a problem, it is an etheric, physical, emotional, and mental problem. All 4 bodies experience the problem at the same time. And it becomes a complicated problem. But if you are not a personality, if you are not yet integrated, then you have only 1 or 2 problems. Because you are only reacting to that problem, to that pain, to that hindrance, to that shock with 1 of your bodies. But not all 4 together. As you develop, synchronization goes forward, and you do eventually become an integrated personality. But you have to work on yourself. Your pain and suffering, and this is the joy, your pain and your suffering and your worries increase. On the other hand, and this is the balance, and why Richard read the poem this morning on joy, is that your joy increases. And why is this? Your physical joy is transferred to the emotional body, and the emotional body transfers it to the mental body. And so you have joy throughout these 4 bodies. The joy is transferred, see, throughout the whole body. If you're not a personality, mentally you can become really happy, but the physical and emotional bodies don't feel anything. I used to call this stage of a person's development that they go into numb lock. I know that it's supposed to refer to, your computer keyboard, and you push on that, numb lock. But I love that term. And so it's like, God, they've got numb lock. They can't, they're not feeling. Nothing is being felt beyond that one body. If you are not a personality, mentally, you become, as I was saying, you become really happy. But the physical and emotional bodies do not feel anything. If you have a sickness, when you are a personality, the sickness affects all 4 bodies, all 4 levels. Now, if we had time this morning, I could bring up some charts and show you why and what is scientifically that integration. Because what is happening is all the centers, they are in communication with one another. The glands and the organs are being fed by the permanent atoms. They're all working together. So if you have a sickness when you are a personality, the sickness affects all 4 levels. If you are not a personality, it may be the sickness is in the physical body, or maybe the emotional body, or maybe in the mental body. When you become a personality, either you are destructive or constructive, because to be a personality does not mean you are a good or bad person. You can be either. You can really be an evil person as an integrated personality. What does this mean? It means you can be very dominating and very overbearing. All your bodies are together. You think, you feel, and you do. All these 3 things simultaneously. If you are not a personality, you can think, but you cannot do it. Or you do not feel it. If you feel it, you don't think about it. That is why many, many millions of people have great ideas and plans, but those ideas and plans remain there. They're not actualized. The emotional body does not react. The etheric body says, I don't want to do that. The physical body says, it's too late. I'm too old. So you're not yet coordinated. The fact is that our personality is built over 200 or 300 incarnations. It is not automatic. So I want to point this out because we can know these things, but it still does not make us an integrated personality. It is not easy to build a personality. And this is why ancient schools and universities of the ageless wisdom had a plan. And that plan was this: we must not build their personalities until they build virtues. As an esoteric astrologer, when I see a horoscope of a baby whose chart indicates that that little treasure can grow into a powerful soul, into being an exceptional spirit, I strongly urge the parents to start teaching that little one virtues, starting no later than age 3. Some parents will say, but shouldn't I start my little one in religion as soon as possible? Well, my answer sometimes shocks them because the answer would be no. Why? Because virtues are not dogmatic. There's no doctrine, in other words, to virtues. Virtues, we could say, are heavenly. They are universal. They are unifying. Virtues build the heart center and create a true thinker. Virtues are manifestations of our real self through the levels, forms, relationships, and many responses of our purified personality. Each virtue manifests one facet. Think of the diamond. Each virtue manifests one facet of the diamond of our spark. Just like the cuts of a diamond make the diamond radiate into different colors. All great ones, such as Hermes, Buddha, Zoroaster, and Christ, put their emphasis on virtues and on those practices which release and develop virtues. It is virtues that in their turn unfold and develop the etheric centers, enabling us to come in contact with a greater universe. So when I'm talking about etheric centers, we're talking about centers not only in our physical etheric body, but also on the Buddhic body and in the Atmic body and in the monadic body. See, so I'm speaking 101 this morning, but I want to throw in some of these other points because some of you are very well knowledgeable about the difference between an integrated body, integrated personality, and a non-integrated personality. But we have to put all of this, not keep it in our, book understanding, but in our experiences, and understand the process that's taking place as our personalities are becoming integrated. Now, I mentioned earlier about being aligned, taking our integrated personality and aligning it to the higher self. It's at that point where now our soul is in complete control over these 4 lower bodies and aligned with the light and love and power of the higher mind, the higher self, the solar angel. The virtues enable this process to take place much more rapidly than ordinarily. Virtues put us in contact with the cosmic etheric planes, namely the Buddhic, Atmic, monadic, and the divine planes. Now we can say, that is a virtuous person, and a virtuous person is powerful. See what the difference between saying, I have a powerful personality versus being a person of power because you're virtuous. If you build your personality, you can be very egocentric, dominating, and separative because you have a personality, which is going to be virtue-less. See the difference now between the two? It means you have power in your hands, but you become power crazy. And we certainly have examples of this all over the world. I was listening to the man, I can't ever pronounce his name, Fareed Zakaria, is that it? Is that right? Okay. And my gosh, if you have a chance to listen to that interview, he's probably on YouTube. This morning he was interviewing this Russian woman who is running against Putin. Of course, she was there. I mean, she wasn't just on the screen, she was there being interviewed by Fareed. And he said, do you really expect to win? She said, no, of course not. Apparently there's 5 or 6 people that are running, and to run for the office of Putin, you have to fall under certain qualifications by a certain date, and then you're allowed to run. Well, this woman, and I can't begin to pronounce her name, it begins with a V. This woman's father was a mentor to Putin. So I think that's why they brought her on, for the interview. And Fareed said, aren't you afraid of being murdered? Because so many that have run against Putin have ended up being murdered, or they've died mysteriously. She said, yes, I'm aware of that. She says, but I have, well, let me put this, she's idealistic, she's a visionary, she has virtue. And she's willing to lose her life. And now here she is on television in the United States, speaking her piece. Basically talking about democracy, about the power of democracy. This person has an integrated personality that is built on the platform of virtue. In other words, she's not power crazy. She's just working against someone, is opposing someone who is power crazy. That's my opinion. Okay. Yeah. A personality comes into being also when a person passes through continuous difficulties, and as such develops their physical, etheric, emotional, and mental bodies. Your personality is developed also when you are dedicated to a vision. And in trying to actualize your vision, you go through many battles and sacrificial services. Meditation and sacrificial service is another way to build an integrated personality. What is the next step? After you become an integrated personality, your soul is emancipated and controls these 3 bodies. He's integrated them totally. The soul has integrated these 4 bodies totally. And the next step is soul infusion. And the step after soul infusion is building what we call the Antakarana bridge. I think, okay, let me close with this. When you are in the presence of a soul-infused personality, you know that they can see you. Even if you try to convince that person of how important you are and so forth, that soul-infused individual can see you, knows you, recognizes you, understands you. And there is something in you that knows it, but refuses to acknowledge it. What is it that keeps us from acknowledging and respecting a soul-infused personality. It's egocentricity. It's, the myriad of glamours that we have, illusions that we base our lifestyle on. So it's our vanities and our egocentricity, our glamours and illusions that blind us to that soul-infused individual. But when we can recognize that soul-infused personality, in that recognition, it puts us on an accelerated spiritual path, because that soul-infused personality is so humble, so giving, that their presence activates the process of integration within us. And let me close with this. An integrated personality is not built from the outside. It is the result of growth. It is a state of beingness on the path of your evolution. So this is a very simple talk this morning, but outrageously challenging.